Just gave the baby chicks a piece of sweet corn. They're feasting on it, enjoying it. Goldenrod is very slow opening this year, but I did manage to stage it out a bit. Despite this crazy dry summer we've had, I still managed. I did an early cutting in here, and I haven't mowed any of this since like June sometime, I think. And so now with the rain shot that we got, this stuff is growing back a little bit, and we'll have a couple different stages of goldenrod. I like this mow in the spring thing into the goldenrod. It really gives us a nice delayed goldenrod spurt at the end of the season, and that gives the honeybees one more last opportunity to pull in high quality resources while they're really getting ready to settle in that winter nest. And that's one thing that I know Ian Stepler focuses on a lot, is building strong winter nest colonies. And so I've kind of like learned that from him, and I'm trying to adopt it into my program using as many natural processes as I can. Go through this quick. Here we are where I'm planning to expand the apiary area here, and on the new roadway looking back at the chicken tractor and corn plots. And I scraped this out last year, I think, last fall or winter, and it's grown back in now really nicely. Lots of diversity, lots of goldenrod, and those are starting to open. Wild raspberry back over here, I was enjoying those earlier in the season, so we don't have to worry about it. Guess I'll just get a shot here of ongoing damage to the sweet corn. We're really kind of ticked about it. Quite a bit of damage, quite a bit of ears of corn lost, and late last night, well, it would be early morning to most people, I discovered it was a skunk that's been doing all this. Doing just a quick check back in the delicata squash. Some of those are coming on nicely. Something chewing on this one. Don't know what. Looks like we got a few in through here. Yeah, good few. Another one coming on back in there. Incredible sweet corn in the curve block planting is into full tassel and starting to throw silks. And the Silver Queen is running a bit further behind that. A little bit drier soil in there, significantly less sunlight. So I'm going to come back and prune out this cherry tree again. Maybe I'll just scrape that out with the tractor. And let's see, so on the positive side, these sunflowers have absolutely exploded and are getting ready to throw some flowers out. So that's nice to see. Get some nice sunflower nectar and pollen for the honeybees late season. Build up that winter nest with nice high quality nectar and pollen. Well, where I got the cover crop drilled in, the buckwheat and rye. The buckwheat's germinating, that's taken off. So that's encouraging. The other block of buckwheat up top, that strips of buckwheat and rye are doing well. And that next planting I put into that spot where the soil kind of tanked on me, not so much. Low germination. But I did not scratch till that in, and I think that's a big part of why the germination is so low in there. But we'll see how it all plays out. And then when the tiller belt comes in and I have the money for it, I'll finish tilling this in, I guess. If it doesn't germinate with the rain we're getting. Actually, it looks like some of these are germinating already. I see buckwheat popping up in here. Maybe we'll just hold off and see what happens. Interesting experiment with just broadcasting buckwheat and rye on top of basically sod. I don't know how well that's going to do. I'm not expecting great results, but we'll see. Either way, right now we have green growing crops on top of it, grasses. So either way, we're sequestering carbon, maintaining soil biology, and helping keep that soil better than open bare ground. Apple tree's doing okay. A few apples coming on. Not looking too bad. September 1st, 2020. I've been trying to pay closer attention in recent years to when I plant any kind of crop into any soil plot, to pay attention to the subtle differences across where that soil's been treated differently. And I've noticed in this buckwheat planting in here, well, first of all, it's taken off really nice, really healthy, stout, robust growth, so that's good. That's part of what happens in building soils. But I've noticed some subtle things here, like this spot where I tilled back in the spring, and actually probably again mid or late June. It's about a 5 or 6 foot wide strip that I tilled in here. This was orange Hawaiian marigold in here last year. Look at them going after the nectar. That long tongue. And then on the left hand side was a double row of Roma San Marzano tomatoes, and same on the right hand side. But it's interesting to see how much taller the buckwheat is in this block in between those two spots. It's sort of counterintuitive, because you would think, given that these were mulched and kept in a more natural soil ecosystem, a non-disturbed soil ecosystem, you would think that these would perform better, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. And it kind of makes me think about one of the podcasts or webinars I was listening to from Advancing Eco-Agriculture from John Kempf. I think it's releasing manganese in the soil or something like that. But he talks about oxidation versus reduction in soils, and he kind of goes into that fairly deep, science-wise. But he talks about how different soils need, different management based on the soil. And when I listened to that talk, it really helped me click into another level of resolution of understanding, so to speak, because I realize here with our heavy clay soils, that tilling is not necessarily a bad thing here. We kind of need some oxidation and aeration. These soils here in Tivoli are very heavy, tight clays, and if we don't open them up a little bit in order to get biology and life and nutrient and life cycles going in them, they really don't perform well. So looking back at this, having considered that, knowing that this was tilled a couple times this year, and other than that, they were treated the same last year. Everything was tilled in here, and then these were planted in, and then these two strips to the left and to the right were mulched heavily and maintained. I'll try and dig up a shot of those. July 15th, 2019. Just wanted to some needs to get out of hand in there last year, and they certainly did this spring, between springtime and when I got around to wiping those out and removing that infrastructure. But it's just an interesting comparison between the two, and it's pretty definitive here. This was tilled over here on the edge a couple times this spring as well, and then this was what was mulched in here, and it's really, man, there's a definitive difference here. This is the tilled strip, and over there was the mulch strip again. So it looks like maybe in order to have a better effect in these tight clay soils here until I can get this soil organic matter up and start to get better aggregation in the soil, it might even be beneficial to do an early season till. But we'll see. This is a cool experiment to try it with, and in the meantime we're building soils back up, helping kind of block weeds out, and getting ready to provide another nectar and pollen crop for the honeybees. So that's what it is. September 8th, 2020. Mentioned in previous videos we had some rain last week. That has made a tremendous difference. Even these raspberries are showing a massive growth response. And it's about that time of year I want to try and get some of these transplanted into a new spot and establish a new raspberry block. I put these here because I wasn't sure where else I was going to put them, so I put them here to propagate them. I started out with 3 plants that my friend Chester gave me 3 or 4 years ago, and now of course we have hundreds of plants. And it's time to do some larger scale propagation and put in an actual raspberry block, or at least a few rows. You can also see massive growth spurt on the Jerusalem artichokes since the rains. They were hurting in the drought also. And of course the Japanese knotweed is now pretty much fully open flowers, and it is just alive with honeybees, wasps, bumblebees, you name it. Right, so here we are out on the farm. Tomatoes are growing at a phasals are starting to go to seed. That's exciting. I'm going to capture a bunch of that for next year. We'll have some improved quality seed. Same with the holy basil. That's going to be loaded. I'm going to capture a ton of that, and I may use that as a partial cover crop system for next year, for cover crop and also for honeybee health and human health and all that sort of stuff. This buckwheat planting, this last buckwheat planting, is starting to flower. That's filling in pretty nicely. Again, you can really see this definitive line between the section that was tilled and the section that was just kept in mulch. If you have not seen my video on that, maybe I'll throw a link in here, but you should go back and check it out. John Kempf gave an excellent talk on releasing mineral metals, especially manganese in soils, and as part of that talk he discussed oxidation versus reduction in soils and how tillage and mulching and all that sort of stuff tie into that. Really excellent information, really powerful information to have and understand, especially if you're working, well, any soil you're working, but here in heavy clay soils I'm finding that the tillage has a positive effect at least early on in the cropping system. This buckwheat is kind of going past its full flower open and starting to produce grain, so that's fantastic. I probably will harvest from this year. I had 2 years of I had some buckwheat seed that I had grown 2 years in my high nutrition system here. It was really good seed, and I tried it in a spot where I didn't do tillage to drill that seed in, and it didn't germinate well at all, so I lost that entire block of seed. So I will probably harvest my next high nutrition seed for next year out of this block, because this block seems to be doing the best out of it, and there's lots of it, and it's not intermixed with corn, so it'll be easier to get to harvest. I don't have a combine or any sort of grain harvesting equipment, so my harvesting is limited to basically coming out here with a garbage can and flailing these flower heads into the garbage can to get the seed off. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but it works, and I can capture a decent amount of seed that way. Anyway, so that's that, and then we'll go over to sweet corn next. So yesterday I did a video on my sweet corn and the skunk. After discovering that and realizing that this next block of sweet corn, this curved block, is my last block of sweet corn and my last opportunity to have a decent harvest of sweet corn. I will get some out of this bodacious, but they did a lot of damage even in this last block of that. So in order to protect this, I went through last night and I took those 2 rolls of fence that I had and I fenced as much of this in as I could. And I got about 80% of it, so that's not horrible. If I can save 80% of this sweet corn and get a harvest out of it, I'll be pretty happy. At least I haven't lost it all. So this lower section here is not doing as well anyway, so I'm excluding it from the fence because I ran out of fence to cover it. And so I'm, obviously going to go for the stuff that's doing the best, that promises the best potential. And of course, in the process, I was able to encompass the delicata squash on the other side here. We'll take a little walk around. You can see where I cut through here and where the 2 sections of fence actually join up in here. And we'll jump over to the other side and I'll show you the other side of the fence. Alright, so here we are at the joiner. You're looking back up the block and you can see that the corn up that way, the incredible, and even the end of this silver queen where it's getting full light and the soil is a little better, is performing much better. It's much taller, much more robust. All that aside, this fence closes in around the backside here, and I debated whether I should try and extend a little further on the corn and go, a few more feet that way, or whether I should encompass the squash. And I figured if the skunks are destroying the corn now, and I'm unable to control that problem ongoing, they're only going to go after the squash when they run out of corn, right? So let's not make it easy for them. The squash aren't doing as well as I would hope. The soil isn't quite as robust as it needs to be for cucurbits, especially squash and pumpkins and that kind of stuff. They like a really good organic, rich mix. It's not quite as rich as it needs to be in here, but there are some squash growing on it, and I will really very much enjoy them, and I will save seed from them again this year if they prove to be of good quality, and I hope they will. So that's that. And sunflowers, more of them are opening, ongoing, and that's encouraging. I just wish I had thousands more in, because I know my honeybees really love them, and so do the other pollinators. Last night in here I saw a moth down in one of these. I've got a few other videos on my channel here if you want to see moths in the sunflowers at night. Interesting thing to watch for sure. Alright, on to the next. Yes, I did want to point out how this sweet clover cover crop is coming in under here. In the process of fencing this last night, I had to cut through here and I could smell that sweet clover. It has its own very distinct smell. Reminds me of being a kid. There was quite a bit of it growing in the old gravel banks behind my parents' house, and also over at the airport across from my parents' house. And so I'd ride through with my bike and I'd smell it. So it brings back a lot of good childhood memories of bike riding and being in the woods. It was kind of a nice little reminder. But I just wanted to get some shots of it here. You can see that it's doing really well underneath this buckwheat nurse crop, and the buckwheat is starting to go to seed here. Guess I'll just show you some seeds quick so you can see it's at various stages of maturity, but it's almost there, almost done. Here's some that's a little more ripe. Big beautiful buckwheat seeds. Anyway, I just wanted to point out how well this cover crop is doing. Last year I had a really hard time getting the sweet clover established, but this year I really reread that information about growing it, and it seems to really like a nurse crop. So this is coming well, and I'm hoping that that other block that I did in, that I seeded down in the lower section there, right into existing grass and white and red clover, I'm hoping that that will germinate well and take off and be solid for next year. I guess I'll just throw this in. This clip in per the sweet clover planting. So this is the block I'm referring to, and you can see it's quite grown in with white clover, red clover, yarrow, okay, white clover, yarrow, and I know there's red clover in here too, which is often a little bit harder to distinguish after it's been mowed back like this, but All through here there's wild grasses, and then a large amount of white and red clovers and some yarrows and other stuff in here. This block has been planted before. I grew, maybe I'll throw a shot in. I grew blue corn in here, squash, pumpkins. I had this planted for a couple of years. Come around and get it out in the sun for you. There you go. Enjoy growing it. And I was checking out a couple of YouTube videos last night of the Indian cultivation of blue corn and white corn and a lot of the other corns that they've been breeding and growing for over 5,000 years. Far away from the rest of the block, it was hard to manage, so I pulled the electric fence back off it for now, and I'm using it now as a cover crop area and honey production crop area, and I may put it back in production at some point, but for now we're just working it as a cover crop block, and it's planted into sweet clover, so hopefully this will come through, germinate well, and grow well and winter over well, and then next year it'll provide a nice honey crop. Who knows, maybe it'll flower during a normal dearth period and provide a nectar and pollen source when there otherwise isn't much nectar and pollen available. We'll just have to see how it works out. One other thing I thought I'd point out here, as you can see, the first block of sweet corn having reached full maturity and basically finishing up seed production, or going into senescence as plants do, where they basically go into the dying part of their life cycle, is browning down from the top to the bottom. That's how crops and plants are supposed to die back, not rot back or fungalize back or get sick and die back. But healthy plants, they reach senescence and they dry down and they dry back like that. So that's why you notice that that block is so much browner than the next block up from it, which, as you recall, was only a day later in planting and 7 days later in total maturity time. But so you can see the 8-day difference between those two is rather dramatic. And then of course, as we work up the block, they're greener and greener because they have not reached senescence yet. Just thought I would point that out. That dry down rather than plants getting sick and dying is very, very important in regenerative agriculture. If you have plants that are sick and dying, you don't have healthy soils, and you need to figure out what those problems are and address them so you do have healthy soils, because that leads to healthy plants, and then the animals and humans consuming those healthy plants get some of that immunity. Quick check up on the baby cheapers. Not such baby cheapers anymore. Getting big. Enjoying some outside forage time. September 21st, 2020. I believe tomorrow is the equinox, if I read correctly and remember correctly. So we're about 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of darkness. That time of year is here again. And last night we had our first frost. According to the Elizaville weather station, which is the closest one to me here, we hit like 29.5 or something like that. I did come out here around 3:15 a.m. and I can confirm we had frost on everything. But interestingly enough, year number 3, where tomatoes come through frost and don't take damage and keep growing. So that's really exciting. It's really nice to not have to worry about that. Or at least not as much as most people do. I did see a comment. I got to go back and respond to it and read it a little more closely, but I know my friend Brad from Grow the Farm Up was talking about seed quality and seed temperatures, ideally not freezing and especially not going below 28 degrees. That's a very important factor in saving seed. So that was good information to receive. Unfortunately, we didn't go below 28 last night. Anyway, maybe what I'll do is grab that comment and bring it forward into a screenshot here or something. But I just wanted to show, once again, we came through frost and no damage on tomatoes, growing away. Relatively healthy plants. I'm going to get out here and do another foliar feed tonight or tomorrow. Tonight if I can swing it. Guess while we're here, we'll just take a look at the large leaf basil that's trying to finish off going to seed. I've come through and harvested the seed out of this once already, and I'm just waiting for it to produce one more round. You can see some of the frost freeze back on the edges here on that. That's obviously a significantly more sensitive plant. I came back through here with the hose and did some watering, and I know that there were some surviving second plantings of large leaf basil, and they looked like they were in pretty good shape. Can't seem to find them now. I guess I'll just point out that the holy basil has also seeded itself into here as well, and I've also found several plants along the edge of this, so it looks like it just needed those mulch and rain and moisture conditions for good germination, and the stuff that was here from last year actually did come through just later in the season than I was hoping for. Let's see. Yeah, surprisingly the buckwheat actually came through the frost as well. I'm pretty impressed by that. Buckwheat is usually pretty sensitive, but then so is basil, and these have been in the foliar feed program and you know, supported nutrition. Hard. So awesome. Probably 65, 70 degrees out, sunny, going strong. Quick shot of the holy basil here. So here we are down at the curb block with the sweet corn and sunflowers. Bumblebees tanking up. I finally actually got back to watch that video from Ian Stepler about sunflowers and honeybee health. Oh, beautiful. Well, thanks for landing here. Anyway, I finally got back to watch that video, and he was talking about how sunflower pollen actually helps honeybee colonies manage nosema, which is an infection that they get in their gut that causes a lot of problems if their health drops a little bit. And I know that's something that Ian's been researching very closely over the last few years, and he's noticed since he started planting more sunflower blocks in, and especially for fall pollen gathering for his honeybees, that he's had a lot less instances of nosema. Now, obviously, this isn't direct causation, but there certainly is a correlation. Anyway, so very interesting study on that. I will share the link to that below here as well, and I will also share a link to the video from Ian where he talks about that, because he is much more knowledgeable about that as it relates to honeybees. And if you haven't checked his channel out, you should. He's really sharing some amazing information, and he really understands honeybees and honeybee colony management. For those who don't know, he's a commercial beekeeper in Canada. He's managing somewhere between 12 and 1,500 hives. It's quite an operation. So anyway, we came through frost. I don't really see any frost damage in here, and we may still pull off some sweet corn. I think my patrols seem to be keeping the raccoons and woodchucks and whoever else was getting in here and causing damage out. Coming down here like basically every hour on the overnights, and you know, just walking through. Haven't seen any more damage since I found this the other day, so that's good news. Orange Hawaiian marigolds are starting to crank up, and I still haven't gotten out here and dug a couple of these up for the greenhouse, but I will. Maybe I'll get to that tonight, who knows. Guess we'll just have a look at the chicken tractor quick. Of course, I'll just give you a shot from this other angle. You can see I haven't gotten back to mowing that lower section, chopping that up yet, but it's on my list for this week. And then we can come through here and seed this in with some cover crops. The buckwheat in this section here and sunflowers did not do as well. This area is pretty dry, and I did not do a lot of supplemental irrigation because I was focusing on crops that I really wanted to be productive. But we did get some decent buckwheat in here going to seed, and I'm debating whether I mow this down and seed it to cover crops, probably mostly rye, or whether I roll it down, seed it to rye and then roll it down. We'll see. Over here where I've had this block where it's struggled every time I've planted something here since I put the wood chips down, I finally decided to put the chicken tractor in here and do some chicken tractor work. And we're on our third move. I just moved it a little while ago, about 20 minutes ago. And I've had them sit here for 2 or 3 days in each spot because it's pretty thick and pretty tall grass. And there's a lot of wood chips and stuff for them to go after. So I've run them a little bit slower over this to get a good deep, chicken tractoring, so to speak. Also this time of year, they're molting, which means they're shedding their old feathers, and they're going to grow new feathers in for the fall and winter to keep them warm and protect them. And so lots of feathers falling down, and their feathers are high in nitrogen, sulfur, and calcium. And I'm sure there's many other trace minerals in there as well. So it works out really good for helping build the soil health. September 21st, 2020. I'm almost dead out of battery here, but I just want to get a quick shot from my friend Brad from Grow the Farm Up, between the till and the no-till. And Brad, I'm going to respond to your comment this afternoon or this evening when I get a chance, but I just thought I would do a quick shot of the area. We did have some germination on the buckwheat. I don't know yet about the rye. It's really hard to tell, but you can see this area is greatly amplified nutritionally. You can see the grass is much thicker and taller and darker green with that sort of blue hue to it. I think that's probably from the inoculants and foliar feeds that I put on back at planting. Really amazing. I don't think I even put any nutritional anything in that. I'll have to look back in the log, but I think it was just inoculants. Anyway, I just thought I'd get a quick clip for you, Brad. So not super successful germination on the buckwheat. The rye I suspect is blended in there, but again, it's sort of hard for me to tell. But we'll see how it emerges. And yeah, I suspect that planting line on the edge, I suspect everything inside those reflectors is basically part of that is rye. Not all of it, obviously. Anyway, just a quick update. November 2nd, 2020, in the greenhouse. I was out here earlier and scooped this up a little bit, but I had the air intake dialed back. You can see here where I stoked it up, and you can see where the stove top went up, and then we're down around 17,000 BTUs in the storage right now. And I also put the new CPU and other core chip cooler heat sinks on the Raspberry Pi. You can see where I shut it down and brought it back up. See that low temperature spot there? That was where it was shut off for a few minutes. Temperature wise now. Of course, there still is the accessory cooling system on here. There's a fan constantly on the processor, and there's a big booster fan to back that up. That runs off of processor temp. And then there's a fan here in the box. Although I never really seem to get this box closed, I'm always working on something. But when the box is closed, this fan will also provide ventilation. And this is a really nice box by Hyperlink Technologies. Quite a bit has log on there. You ready? Make sure the gate's tight. And And we'll go back to the chart in a minute here, and we'll monitor what happens. Right, here we are, 6:30. This is about an hour after I started this whole video. You can see stove temp dropping back off, coming back down to normal operating temperature. For comparison, I'll take you back to last night when our settings were about the same. And so you can see we're going to regulate back here again, just like here. We have a nice flat temperature line in the greenhouse, relatively steady heat production, and of course you can see the thermal mass being managed a bit here. And you can see the swing go up in the daytime with the sun radiation, and back down as the temperatures cool off. You can see here where the vents open and close a bit. With the vents open, you can see the temperature drop dramatically.